Hello, hello, and welcome back to Matriarchetype, where we are recapping everything that JK Rowling has ever done that was transphobic. This is episode 2 of an ongoing series. If you haven't seen the first episode, go and check that out. We covered 2017 to 2020 because there was a few things earlier on, but the bulk of it was the year 2020. And this is episode 2. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Join me for this little deep dive. Hello and welcome to Matriarchetype. I will be your goddess for today because we are recapping 2021 of JK Rowling's Transphobia. As I said, this is part of a series. You can check out the entire series now. The whole thing is released on my Patron. If you just can't wait until the next episode, if you just love 2022 and you have to know what she did, check it out on Patreon. Thank you so much for everyone that's already joined. I really appreciate you so much. And quick plug, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for both me and this channel, and I'm so proud of that. So subscribe now to be one of the OG 10,000 that supported the channel. Without further ado, let's get on with today's video. We actually open with something not so much that JK Rowling did, but a response to the Hogwarts Legacy video game, which will be an important part in further episodes, but at this point it was kind of in development. March the 2nd, makers of the Harry Potter video game announced trans character options. LGBTQ+ fans say it isn't enough. Bloomberg reports that players of Hogwarts Legacy, a then upcoming Harry Potter video game, would be able to choose from trans character options. Some celebrated this seemingly progressive addition to the Potter universe, but others were quick to note that the move felt hollow considering the anti-trans vitriol that Rowling had shared online. Like several companies that still have anything to do with the Harry Potter IP, there was an attempt to separate the game from JK Rowling, especially when the boycott became very apparent. And that will come up a lot more later on, especially when it's released. But even at the announcement phase, the developers tried to say like there will be trans options for characters to try and modernize a very non-trans inclusive universe that was Harry Potter even at the time. But already at this point, fans were saying that isn't enough. Laura Kate Dale is discussing the efficacy of supporting the Hogwarts Legacy franchise. It's still supporting Rowling's properties. WB Games still won't publicly denounce Rowling's view. WB Games CEO hasn't changed his being transphobic is just an opinion and shouldn't be criticised stance. It's still produced by a known right-wing arsehole. And whilst we did have several of the original Harry Potter cast speaking out against what JK Rowling was saying, we did also have people that agreed with her. Dave Chappelle's famous comedy situation came out to be on the side of JK Rowling. Dave Chappelle defends Rowling in his Netflix comedy special and says he's Team TERF. Comedian Dave Chappelle told audiences he was Team TERF in his stand-up special, The Closer, which premiered on Netflix on October 5th, 2021 and sparked massive backlash. Throughout the 72-minute Netflix special, Chappelle praised Rowling's history of transphobia by repeating many of her trans-misogynistic beliefs and calling them facts. "I'm Team TERF. Gender is a fact," he said. "They cancelled JK Rowling, my god," the comedian said in the special. Effectively, she said gender was a fact. The trans community got mad as fuck and started calling her a TERF. To say Rowling has been cancelled feels like a stretch, when she still has many millions of dollars and followers after being virulently transphobic for years. Chappelle had previously faced backlash for making dehumanizing jokes about trans people, many of which regurgitated harmful stereotypes that frame trans women as predators, the kind of rhetoric that contributes to violence towards trans femmes of colour. After the comedian's special dropped, LGBTQ+ advocacy organisations, activists and trans employees at Netflix spoke out against how it put an even larger target on the backs of trans people. In a tweet on the 7th of October, Glad tweeted, "Dave Chappelle's brand has become synonymous with ridiculing trans people and other marginalised communities. Negative reviews and viewers loudly condemning this latest special is a message to the industry that audiences don't support platforming anti-LGBTQ diatribes. We agree." People were quick to point out the hypocrisy of Netflix, a platform that claims to be LGBTQ+ friendly, paying roughly $24 million for Chappelle's specials and repeatedly cancelling new queer media ventures after one season. The streamer went on to suspend then reinstate multiple trans employees who spoke out against the special, as well as fire the leader of the trans employee resource group. Now, again, there is this through line of corporations and organizations that will choose to side with capital, even if it goes against some of their other stated ideologies and ethos. We know this now to have worsened in Trump too, where, Meta, Amazon, all of these billionaire companies are also cozying up to Trump because it benefits them. But even at this point, the cracks were really there for the neoliberal side of things, where companies were trying to be a little bit more inclusive because it suited them, and it seemed where that was popular opinion where it was, and policy. And it's in Trump too that we really see that facade completely breaking. Corporations are just overtly going where the money is. AI now has become part of the conversation, as well as throwing any minorities under the bus that the governments in power in the West have also deemed worthy of being thrown under a bus. In November 2021, despite Rowling's mansion being identified on Wikipedia, the author claims she was doxed. Rowling owns a historically significant and therefore very publicly known mansion that has been the subject of press coverage and controversy for over a decade. This means her address has been readily available to the public for years. Despite the notoriety of her home, though, Rowling expressed shock and horror on X in saying she was doxed when 3 trans activists took a picture in front of her famous estate and posted it online. In November 2021, the trio held a mini protest outside the author's residence, holding signs that said, "Trans liberation now, don't be a sissy, and trans rights are human rights." Now, I have to also be careful of not, in the process of going through everything that JK Rowling kind of went through over these years, to kind of unintentionally justify where she is in her headspace. And because even when I was doing the research, there were a few lines that I could connect to, this is where she started to get like harassment, and this is where her book comes out with that, and then this is where she's here. And obviously I'm not, of course, not justifying her descent into madness, in my opinion. I'm going to explain overtly, in fact, the opposite of this. So even in this situation, we see she says she was doxed, even though her address is somewhat public. Where she lives is public. She lives in a castle in Scotland. Being aware of this as well, we can also see her mindset. And I don't use the term victim mentality lightly. I will leave that up to the viewer of just keep the word victim mentality in mind through this series, because I do personally find some correlations there, especially when we get to Ink Black Heart, which I think is an episode or 2 away. You can see how she gets to her original transphobic mindset by the things that have happened to her in the past, by ironically cis men as well, but also how she continues to apply that. And the backlash, like we see with so many people that claim to be cancelled, it's like we can see the backlash came from their own actions, but they decide that the cancellation is someone else's fault. Her claiming that she didn't want to be doxxed when she's also very overtly tagged people on Twitter and stuff like that to cause her fandom to go and harass them, I think the cognitive dissonance is very clear here. Rowling's concern was that the street number of her house was included in the photo, a home and location that has, again, been frequently featured in press coverage because the authors battle against local government to have hedges thick enough to impede sidewalk traffic. They should have reflected on the fact that I've now received so many death threats I could paper the house with them, and I haven't stopped speaking out, Rowling wrote. Perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there, the best way to prove your movement isn't a threat to women is to stop stalking, harassing and threatening us. Months after Rowling accused trans activists of doxing her, the Scottish authorities announced their finding. In Jan 2022, Police Scotland determined that there was no criminality involved in the alleged doxing. So the police claimed there was no criminality in the doxing. There was no criminality behind it. I also feel like they would have been on her side if they could have. Let me say it like that. As I also said before, in the ongoing episodes, I am going to be taking set design inspiration, let's say, from some of my favorite creators and just kind of parodying their looks and their kind of vibe. So if you could tell who I am parodying today, let me know in the comments below. Comment below. We do a little ASMR. And fun fact, this mic actually is not very good. So my normal mic is just attached to it. It's all smoke and mirrors, people. Nothing is real. And this next section is probably going to be highly censored. So if you want to see it uncensored, go and check it out on the Patron version. Otherwise, I'm going to have to bleep a few words. In the same year, Rowling also criticised police for letting suspects identify as women. In another controversial tweet, Rowling shared a Times of London piece about the absurdity of police logging rapists as women, which said police in Scotland would record rapes by offenders with male genitalia as being committed by a woman if the attacker identified as female. Rowling evoked 1984 by tweeting, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is stress, the penis individual who raped you is a woman." To which Jonathan Van Ness actually, I saw his response, saying, "The biggest threats of violence against women has always been cisgendered men, not trans women, unless JK's constant transphobic cherry-picked vitriol convinces you otherwise. But as trans women are assaulted, deprived of work, killed and raped, JK is safe in her mansion." As Jonathan Van Ness says, quite rightly, the association of trans women being cis men is the main core of her transphobia, and that therefore allows her to blame trans women for the crimes of cis men. And I think that is one of the longest through lines as to how she gets to where she ends up in this turf madness that she falls into. But I think as well, even if you meet her in that premise, which obviously we don't, one person doing a crime doesn't mean that every single person of that same gender identity are going to do the same crime. I think like the disproportionality in the representation of trans shooters in America being then justified as like all trans people are crazy and mentally ill, like even that is flawed because we are not a monolith. You can't just apply one person or one percentage of a demographic does something so everyone is likely to do that thing. And also, if you were going to apply that, cis men are just proportionately more likely then by that same logic. You have to be in a transphobic mindset to even get to that point though. To be blaming trans women for cis men's crimes is innately denying that trans women are who they say they are, and that is transphobic. I'm sorry, if we've got to this far in the series and people are still saying what she said isn't transphobic, it's true. You have to usurp the idea that you are in the wrong opinion, or your opinion that you, whether you say wrong or right, is still transphobic. I mean, by all means, if people are still watching this and they're like, no, I agree with what she's saying, hold steadfast to your beliefs. If I can't change you in the course of this 7-episode series, then I don't know what to do. But you have to understand then that what you believe to be true is also transphobic. Those two things can coexist. Now, I did also find this quote that was actually being used later on to see how her views have changed. But on the 29th of December 2021, correcting an article about her, saying, "Small but important point. I've never said there are only two genders. There are innumerable gender identities." Isn't it funny how quick the time changes? So not only did JK Rowling become the kind of the face of being a TERF in the West, even this quote really is interesting to me, that like I said in the last episode, she remains to have some form of, I'm going to say, salience and understanding of the world around her, that gender identities exist. Unless this is a sarcastic tweet that I can't pick up because I had that form of autism, then she's at least admitting that gender identities exist as a thing. Whereas we're going to see her delve into just so much worse that she'll start just denying that in its entirety. Like, non-binary people don't exist, intersex people don't even exist. I think the asexual community catch strays. Like, it just, this, I don't know again if this is still a facade or if this is her at this point in time believing what she says. Probably never going to know, because I wouldn't speak to her if she offered me her entire £1 billion. So a fairly short episode. Ironically, I'm also parodying a creator that uses very long videos and podcasts and stuff. But for this one, I'm going to try and stay true to what I can find in my research for this series. I'm not going to stretch out an episode because there isn't as much to cover. And equally, foreshadowing, I am not going to shorten episodes that there is just more to cover. I think actually the next episode is going to be pretty long. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, because we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and I don't know where I am when this is released, but if you want to be part of the OG 10,000, then please subscribe now. I already had a huge jump in subscribers thanks to my Brennan Lee Mulligan video a couple weeks ago. Thank you so much if you're still here because of that. I will go on to parody another creator. I say parody, just kind of take some set inspiration just to try and keep the series exciting. It will be available as a playlist on YouTube as well. So if you are just finding this and you want to watch the original episode, please go find that. So let me know in the comments who you think I am trying to be. I don't know if it's super obvious or people are going to be like, I have no idea. I guess if you know, maybe as a vibe. Equally, let me know who you think I'm going to be next week. Let me know who you would like me to be. I've already pre-recorded all of these, but I can always do that in another form of this. If this kind of format goes well and people really follow along with the series, then I, of course, will do this again. So let me know what you think. Anyway, I really appreciate you all being here. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for sticking around. Look out for the next episode, and I'll also cover anything in kind of pop culture that happens in between then. Until then, have a wonderful week and stay fruity.